So this is another deck that I've been tinkering with in the background that I just really haven't had a chance to showcase. But it's a very interesting version of the GRAVIDIA deck. This is pure GRAVIDIA. There is no world engine, no eclipsed moonlight cards, just all pure GRAVIDIA engine. And I built the deck to, or originally, shoutouts to my friend Yamil, because he's the one that convinced me on Pure, because he was doing certain plays of Pure that I was like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting. Like, I like what you're doing there. And I was like, oh, damn, like, let me try Pure. Let me see, like, it opens up certain space with certain cards I could use. Like, let me see, like, what I can do with Pure versus, like, you know, I know the GRAVIDIA World deck is really good and very popular, but I want to see what Pure can do. So this is my Pure GRAVIDIA deck, and let's get into the profile. First off, we're gonna start off with the number of meteors we're running, because that's just the easiest way of doing it. Is we are running 4 of the Hell Hazard, that counts as 2 meteors, and then I'm only running 5 regular meteors. Now the reason that I am running 5 is because my goal generally is to play a meteor on turn 1, or well, at first I was running the grade 2 that lets you put 5 meteors back, shuffle them into your deck, and then it gets plus 15k. But I took that card out of the deck. I just felt like it wasn't necessary. I felt like the format was like so fast that you really wouldn't get into a grind game scenario where you needed that effect. So this is just like a very aggressive version of the deck. Aggressive in the terms of I can pop 5 meteors every turn. I can kill like 3 to 4 cards on your board every turn. So I'm only playing 5 grade 1 meteors, and then maxing out on the hell hazards because they count as 2. Oh, actually no. Let me see how I can make this all fit. Let me put this here. Put the 5 meteors here. But yeah, generally speaking, because of the ride line, I want to play a meteor on turn 1. I want to play a meteor. Well, depends on your hand, but ideally you want to play a meteor on turn 1. That's one of these guys, and then when you ride grade 3, you pull another one of these 2s out, you draw 2 cards. And then, you still have 2 in deck for left over, but that's really depending on what you're doing with your hand and what do you have in your hand. Like, there's so many times where like all your meteors are already out of deck by like turn 4. But moving on to the rest of the cards, the bread and butter of the deck, you really do need to max out on 4 copies of this card. This is what help. This is like the bulk of where your meteors come from, where your draw power comes from, and her ability is just so strong in terms of you get to retire, and then you also get to double trigger effects. Like, the way I play this deck is I double trigger effects every turn, and the fact that she gets a crit, it like almost demands a PG out of my opponent every turn. If not, even if they're at 2 damage, 1 critical trigger can just end the game. I can like 2 to 6 them just with her attack. So she's just like, that is the reason that I would almost consider GRAVIDIA tier 1, but I wouldn't, for the sole fact that it can only make 3 attacks. It's very high tier 2. It's a very high tier 2 deck because it has like a really good early game, and it just like from turn 3 onwards, the top 2 cards of the deck is just like so scary because trigger effects activate twice. Like, you can't normally 2 to pass GRAVIDIA. You have to like guard with extra, like you have to perfect guard her. You have to perfect guard her, or you're wasting like 3 cards for her attack alone. And then we are maxing out 4 copies of Burrito. Burrito is just like the best, like one of the better, like the best cards in your deck. Like, it gains a crit, it recurs meteors from the drop zone. Like, that's the reason why you're maxing out 4 copies of Burrito. And then I'm playing 4 copies of Lynx. Now, Lynx is a lot like is a lot like the burrito, but it hits. Like, you might not know what this card does, but when it hits, I don't like explaining cards in videos, but this card might not be known, so its ability is, when it hits anything, you could search your deck for a meteor, or you could search your drop zone and play it. And if you search your deck, you shuffle your deck, obviously. But this is just really good, or at least I found better than the grade 2 that lets you shuffle meteors back into the deck. I found this plus burrito is just way better, like, it's way better at helping you obtain the 5 meteors every turn, helping you, like, you know, like I said, helping you for your follow-up on the next turn. And this is just, like, also a really good card to rush and aggress with, because you have the ability of deck thinning. If you've been discarding meteors for your ride deck, you have the ability of just automatically getting those cards back if you don't have burrito to play on the next turn. So that's the reason why I'm maxing this card out at 4 copies. I haven't seen anyone else play this except for one of my teammates that barely plays Overdress. He plays this as well, and I'm like, oh, you're playing that card too? And I'm like, damn. I thought I was the only one that realized it wasn't bad. But that's why we're running that card at 4 copies. Like, there's just so, again, because it's an on-hit effect, there's just so, people don't want on-hit effects to hit. So there was so many times that I'll swing with these first, take the cards out of my opponent's hand, and be like, I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. I just want to I either want to search my follow-up, or extend my plays, or take cards out of your hand. So that's why I think this card is just such a great card for this deck. And then you're running 4 copies of GRAVIDIA Stanner. 4 copies of GRAVIDIA Stanner. You really just need to max out on this card because it's a good 15k attacker and it is a 10k shield. You are running a lot of cards in this deck without shield. That's why I'm running so little grade 1 meteors, is because I'm trying to run as little as I possibly need, because of how, like I said, how many cards you run in this deck without shield. You have, what, this is 5, 8, this is 12. You're running 14 cards without shield value in this deck. You could search them and pull them out of the deck, but still, 14 cards without shield value in this deck is just very important on the extra shield cards you do have to max out on them. So that's why you're maxing out on 4 copies of Stanner. And then I am also playing 2 copies of GRAVIDIA Wells. Now, I did realize I had like an extra 2 slot in the deck while I was building this version of the deck. And I was like, damn, what should I put there? At first, I was putting, like, Applebee's. This grade 1 that says when you on call, if you have 3 more meteors, you counterblast 1 and you draw 1. So at first, I was playing that card at 2, but then I was like, I don't like the counterblast cost. Like, the one thing I really do like about this deck is more or less you really can't damage deny it, because the only thing that you're counterblasting with is your Vanguard GRAVIDIA. And I didn't like the counterblast cost on that. I didn't like that you had to already have 3 meteors set up, which really isn't that hard. But the reason that I like Wells is, even if you don't have the 2 meteors in hand to call off a Wells, it's a Soul Blast 1, it's a 10k booster, which is perfect behind your Vanguard, because your Vanguard is, with its ability, base 28. That makes it a 38k column. With Burrito, behind Burrito, GRAVIDIA Wells, that makes a 28k column without Persona Ride, without any triggers. And it really helps, too, if Burrito has the crit, that you do make this a magic number. So that's the reason why I'm playing the 2 GRAVIDIA Wells. Also, if you do happen to see it in the early game, like I said, because this deck really doesn't require too much counterblast, you can just kind of like get away with a rushing with it and like not care. Especially if your opponent went first and they attack it, you're just like, okay, that's fine. Like, eventually you're going to give me the 1 counterblast I need, because all I need is 1 counterblast to turn on my whole entire deck. But, on to the rest of the deck. We are, of course, running 4 Perfect Guards. Not much to talk about there. Like I said, in every profile I've done today, such an aggressive format, you cannot get away with running, like, not 4 of these specific Perfect Guards. Onto the trigger lineup. The trigger lineup I feel like should be pretty like same across the board for all Gravidia decks, or at least in my opinion. You should max out on the front triggers because, again, with how many cards you're running without shield in this deck, I just feel like it's so important to max out on cards that do gain that extra shield value. So I am maxing out on the front triggers. You are playing 4 heals, and like I said, your deck just becomes so scary when you do pop the five meteors to get the extra trigger effects. Like, there's just so many times where like my opponent pushed me to 4 damage or like 5 damage. I checked the heal, I healed twice, or I checked the front. That's an extra 20k to the front row. So it's just like no matter like what the trigger is, doubling it is just so powerful in this deck because it's essentially like you got you got your 2 triggers off your drive check. And then for the rest, we are running 7 crit, and then the Brant Gate over. I don't need to tell you what this like. This is what I would consider actually the best over trigger in Overdress, because like even in the early game, like it just has the propensity to just finish the game off there because of its ability to double everything, to just like almost like like if you're on, there's so many times like someone checked the over trigger on me or I checked the over trigger on them while I'm on grade 2 and I have a front row, the game's over. So there's really no other over trigger in Brant Gate that you would rather run than this over trigger, especially in this deck, for the simple fact that you could proc this off twice. I'm playing this exact list in the video versus the Shadow Paladin match. Not well, yeah, it is Shadow Paladin. It's the Shadow Paladin, the only Shadow Paladin deck in Overdress. But I am playing this exact list, and I checked the over trigger and I activated it twice because I popped the 5 meteors, and that was just auto game. Well, I think I checked the trigger before that, and it was just yeah, I checked that and it was auto game, because like I was dealing like 8 damage with my Vanguard. I think he no guarded it. No, he guarded the Vanguard, but I doubled the rear guard. The rear guard's powers and criticals doubled twice, so they were both swinging. One was 100 million, one was 200 million, and they were both 4 damage, and my opponent was at 3. So just very powerful, and there's really no other over trigger you would rather run in this deck. Bad matchups I would say is like decks that can like rush you out in the early because of your low shield value. Like I said, because of your low shield value, you can tend to get like beaten by rush or get put like your back against the wall versus rush, but you do have the ability to stabilize. Prison is like a very much grind game matchup. I was actually playing that matchup the other day with one of my friends. It's very much a grind game matchup to where is like any person can really win. It's just basically who sees what. That's what it basically becomes. But this is a very solid tier 2 deck. I feel very confident that I can take this deck to any event and place very well with it. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys wanted to see any other decks or deck profiles. I have all 16 decks for the 5 main nations, except the only ones I don't have are Lyrical and Token Rambu. Like I said, they don't interest me. But yeah, let me know. Bye.